People think being unseen means being behind, that if nobody's clapping, nothing is happening. But that's not how real growth works. The loudest seasons of your life are usually the weakest ones, and the strongest seasons. They look empty from the outside. There's a phase nobody talks about, where you're not winning publicly, not losing dramatically either. You're just rebuilding, learning things the hard way, unlearning habits that once kept you safe but now keep you small. This phase doesn't photograph well, so people skip it, or they rush through it. And that's why most never change. Silent growth isn't romantic. It's repetitive. It's choosing discipline when nobody is watching. It's fixing patterns instead of defending your image. It's swallowing your ego and letting people misunderstand you, because explaining would cost more energy than it's worth. You don't need to be seen while you're becoming. In fact, being seen too early can ruin the whole thing. Attention interrupts focus. Validation delays mastery. When eyes are on you, you start performing instead of building. You start shaping yourself for approval instead of truth. There's power in moving quietly. When nobody expects anything from you, you're free. Free to make mistakes without an audience. Free to be bad at something long enough to get good. Free to change without having to explain why you're no longer the same. Most people want the reward before the wait. They want recognition without resistance. But the work that actually transforms you happens when it feels pointless. When progress is internal. When the only proof is that you're thinking differently, reacting slower, choosing better. You don't announce this kind of growth. You let it show later, in how little you react, in how much you can walk away from, in how steady you stay when things get uncomfortable. Silence isn't weakness. It's containment. It's pressure being stored, not leaked. And one day, without warning, people will feel it. Not because you told them, but because you became someone who no longer needs to. You wake up one day and realize something uncomfortable. The people who talk the most about growth are often standing still. They announce every step, every plan, every intention, as if saying it out loud counts as doing it. It doesn't. It just makes quitting easier. Real progress changes how you move, not how you speak. It makes you quieter, more selective. You stop needing witnesses, because the work starts happening where nobody can applaud it. Silent growth forces you to sit with yourself longer than you'd like. No distractions, no praise to soften the truth, just patterns staring back at you. The ones you've been avoiding, justifying, repeating. This is where most people escape. They'd rather stay loud than stay honest. There's a strange loneliness in improving privately. You outgrow conversations before you outgrow people. You notice how often noise replaces depth. How many opinions are just unexamined habits dressed up as confidence. You don't judge it. You just stop participating. This is also where discipline becomes personal. Not motivational, not aesthetic, just necessary. You don't wake up inspired. You wake up committed. You do things because they need to be done, not because they feel good or look impressive. When you grow in silence, your standards rise quietly too. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop romanticizing your weaknesses. You stop calling avoidance peace and laziness patience. You see things clearly, and that clarity costs comfort. People might think you've become distant, colder, less expressive. What they don't see is that you've learned where your energy leaks. You've learned that not every thought deserves a voice. Not every battle deserves your presence. Not every connection deserves access. Silence sharpens you. It teaches restraint. It teaches timing. It teaches you that strength isn't intensity. It's control. Anyone can react. Few can pause. And here's the truth most won't admit. Being unseen protects you. While others compete, you prepare. While others rush outcomes, you refine foundations. You're not slower, you're deeper. Growth like this doesn't announce itself. It shows up later when pressure hits. When chaos looks for a reaction and finds none. When something that once broke you barely registers. You don't need to prove you're changing. You'll know. Because the things that used to pull you off course no longer reach you. And that's when silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling powerful. There comes a moment when you notice the shift, not in your results, in your tolerance. Things that once drained you now barely touch you. Not because you've numbed yourself, but because you've strengthened your center. This is the phase where patience stops being passive. You're not waiting anymore. You're aligning. Every decision gets quieter but sharper. You don't rush clarity. You let it arrive. Silent growth teaches you something most people never learn. Urgency is often fear pretending to be ambition. The need to be seen, to be validated, to be ahead. It usually comes from uncertainty, not confidence. When you're truly building, speed becomes irrelevant. Accuracy matters more. You start choosing long-term discomfort over short-term relief. You delay gratification without announcing it as discipline. No quotes, no posts. Just small, boring choices repeated until they change you. This is where self-respect is built, not declared. You keep promises to yourself when nobody would know if you didn't. You walk away from things that feel familiar but wrong. You stay when it would be easier to escape. And each time, something solid forms underneath you. People don't realize how heavy this kind of growth is. Carrying awareness without dumping it on others. Seeing the truth without forcing it into conversations. Knowing your value without needing it confirmed. You also stop explaining your absence. You learn that distance isn't punishment. It's preservation. Not everyone deserves access to the version of you that's under construction. Some only know how to interrupt, not support. This is when life gets simpler, but not easier. Fewer words, fewer attachments, higher standards. You don't crave intensity anymore. You crave consistency. And slowly something changes in how people respond to you. They don't know why. They just feel it. Your presence carries weight now. Not because you demand it, because you no longer chase it. Silent growth doesn't make you superior. It makes you steady. And steadiness outlasts talent, luck, and noise. Always. At this stage, you stop romanticizing progress. You see it for what it really is. Loss. Loss of old versions. Old reactions. Old comforts. Old identities that once protected you, but now hold you back. This is where it gets uncomfortable in a quieter way. No dramatic breakdowns. No visible collapse. Just a steady dismantling of who you thought you were supposed to be. And nobody claps for that. You realize some habits weren't flaws. They were survival tools. And thanking them means letting them go. That's harder than fixing what's obviously broken. Because it means admitting you've outgrown what once kept you alive. Silent growth asks you to stand alone without announcing your strength. To choose restraint when ego wants display. To stay grounded when you finally could prove something. This is where maturity replaces hunger. You stop reacting to disrespect the way you used to. Not because you tolerate it, but because you see it clearly. You don't need to correct everyone's perception of you. You let time do that work, or you let distance finish the conversation. There's a certain coldness that develops here. Not cruelty, precision. You become careful with your words because you understand their cost. Careful with your energy because you know how long it takes to rebuild it. You also notice how much of the world runs on impulse. People chasing feelings, drama, immediate relief, and you no longer envy it. You've seen the aftermath of living that way. This is where discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. You don't try anymore. You choose. Again and again, even when nobody notices. Especially then. Growth in silence doesn't reward you quickly. It rewards you permanently. With stability, with self-trust, with a nervous system that no longer lives in fight mode. And here's the part most won't tell you. Once you reach this level of clarity, going back feels impossible. The noise doesn't tempt you anymore. It just sounds hollow. Once you've built in silence, visibility becomes optional. Not a necessity, not a measure of worth. It's a choice. You've learned that attention can be a trap. It's addictive. It can inflate the ego or shatter it. And when you've grown quietly, you carry a new awareness. The world doesn't need to see you to respect you. The work itself demands recognition in time. Now, when you step into light, it's deliberate, measured, not a performance, not a plea for approval. People feel the difference immediately. They sense someone who isn't trying to impress, someone who simply exists with authority. Silent growth has taught you patience. not waiting passively but observing deeply. You know when to act, when to speak, when to move. And because of this restraint, every action carries weight. Every word has precision. Every presence demands consideration. You also realize how many people waste energy chasing the visible. Chasing likes, applause, agreement. Most never understand that influence flows from mastery, not noise. From quiet competence, not endless display. From being someone who's been tested in unseen darkness and came out intact. This is when you understand power differently. Not the loud, fleeting kind. The steady kind. The one that doesn't need a witness to exist. The one that shapes circumstances, not just reacts to them. And here's the final truth. Being unseen while you grow is the most radical form of self-respect. It protects your energy. It preserves your vision. It forces honesty with yourself. Eventually, people will notice. Not because you've sought it, but because growth, real growth, cannot hide forever. And when it arrives quietly, it arrives fully. Most people will never understand silent growth. They confuse quiet with weakness, stillness with stagnation. They don't see the battles fought inside, the hours spent staring at your own patterns, the moments you resisted the easiest choice because it was convenient, not correct. There's a loneliness here that's heavy but necessary. Not everyone deserves to witness your transformation. Some will be jealous. Some will demand shortcuts. Some will complain that you've changed too much. And that's fine. Let them talk. You're not building for their comfort. Silent growth forces you to confront your limits. Not just the obvious ones, but the subtle ones. The grudges you hold, the fears you hide, the excuses you tell yourself in the quiet of the night. These are heavier than any external obstacle, and facing them alone is what makes you unshakable. It's here that you realize patience isn't about waiting. It's about endurance. It's about the strength to persist when nobody applauds, when no one notices your efforts, when your progress looks invisible, even to yourself. And yet, day by day, the foundation thickens. You're not faster. You're deeper. You're stronger in ways the world cannot measure. Most people are allergic to this kind of work. They prefer chaos to clarity, noise to reflection, applause to truth. They try to force recognition before it's earned. You've chosen differently. You've chosen the hidden forge of growth, and the results will be silent but unbreakable. At this stage, silence becomes a shield. It protects your vision, your energy, your mind. You stop explaining yourself. You stop negotiating for understanding. You stop asking for permission. You simply exist in a space where your work speaks for itself. And here's the cold truth. Most people will never get it. They'll judge what they see, not what they don't. They'll assume inactivity where there is preparation, weakness where there is fortitude, failure where there is patience. Let them. They don't matter. Because when the time comes when circumstances demand action, you will move differently than anyone expects. Not frantic, not desperate, but precise, measured, and far more effective than those who spent their energy chasing visibility. Silent growth isn't a choice made for convenience. It's a strategy, a life philosophy, a refusal to be distracted by applause, envy, or superficial validation. You've learned that the deepest, strongest change happens in rooms with no audience at all. The world will notice eventually, and when it does, it won't be because you asked. It will be because your strength is undeniable, because your presence carries weight, because you became someone the noise could never reach. By now you understand that growth in silence isn't comfortable. It's not celebrated. It's not flattering. It's quiet work with loud consequences. You start noticing patterns everywhere. People performing for attention, measuring worth in applause, trading depth for display. And you no longer want that. You no longer envy it. You've learned that visibility without foundation is fragility. This is when you realize the true cost of being unseen. It asks more of you than being seen ever would. It asks honesty when it hurts. It asks patience when it frustrates. It asks courage when nobody is watching. And here's the subtle victory. While others chase recognition, you're chasing mastery. While they bend to validation, you bend only to truth. While they seek comfort, you sit in the pressure that forges you. And slowly, inevitably, that makes you untouchable. The world will notice you eventually. Not because you made noise, but because your work becomes unignorable. It's in your decisions, your calm under pressure, your ability to hold still when chaos surrounds. You won't need to explain. You won't need to perform. You'll simply exist as the product of your unseen effort. And the people who never understood will watch quietly. Because silent growth leaves a different kind of mark. One that can't be erased, can't be debated, can't be ignored. There's a strange kind of freedom here. Because when you've built without eyes, without applause, without permission, you no longer seek it. You are complete in your own presence. Your value doesn't need recognition. Your strength doesn't need confirmation. That is the paradox of unseen growth. It is the hardest, loneliest path, but the one that makes everything else irrelevant. Once you've walked it, the noise, the chaos, the expectations, they fade. They fade because they never mattered. Only your choices mattered. Only your discipline mattered. Only your quiet persistence mattered. And now, having moved through the unseen, you carry a truth few ever feel. What is built in silence endures. What is forged without witnesses becomes unshakable. What is mastered privately commands power publicly. You don't need to be seen. You never did. You only needed to grow.